had a discussion recently with another business owner, and we were talking about the concept of entrepreneurism and whether or not it's something that you're born with or you can develop.
Right.
Because you literally flipped a switch and became an entrepreneur.
Right.
So my question was that always there for you? Or is it something that you learned and just grew into?
You know, it's funny. So my mom brought this up to me when I first started I forget which business it was. I've owned 3 or 4 of them now. But she brought it up to me and she goes, I remember you saying that you could see yourself running your own clinic or running your own business or having your own such and such by the time you were 40. And I was doing it well before that.
Right.
And I was like, I said that? She said, yes. I don't remember saying that. I don't remember saying that. I knew that there was something in me that was bound or destined to do something different than just trade my time for money as an employee. But I don't think I really knew what it was.
Right.
And having the opportunity to have a little bit of freedom in my schedule and my time, so that decision was made in 2015, that first business. And I told myself when I started that, I was like, I will never go work for anybody else ever again. And I haven't.
Yeah.
And you're talking about 8 years worth now, right?
Now, there's nothing wrong with being an employee.
Definitely not.
Because obviously, in the grand scheme of things, there are way more employees than there are business owners. And employees actually help the functioning of a business operate correctly. If structured the right way and the right systems and processes and procedures in place.
100%.
But there is definitely something different about an entrepreneur. When you look at most entrepreneurs, like just imagine close your eyes, everyone who's listening and watching this, close your eyes and just picture the word entrepreneur. Like, what is it that you see in your mind? What is the quality of that person? What are they doing day in and day out? And you seem to be able to flip it right at the right time and in the right cadence because you put it into practice pretty quickly. What do you attribute that capability to?
The only entrepreneur that I know in my family was my grandfather.
Okay.
Him and his brothers had a bricklaying business.
Okay.
They built homes, shopping centers, all the things. But I didn't really, as a kid, I didn't put like entrepreneur to that. Like they were bricklayers. That's what they did. But they had their own business. They did their own thing, but they never talked about it.
Okay.
And I wasn't educated on it. I didn't know much about it. I knew that there was something inside of me. And for me, the word entrepreneur means a creative person who decides to use their skills to elicit change. Right?
Okay.
That's what that is to me. And so in that moment, I was like, well, let me be creative. And it wasn't necessary to elicit change in an industry or change in the world, so to speak, from like a visionary standpoint.
Right.
But it was like, how can I get creative, create my own revenue, and create my own time freedom, right? So that was where my mindset was.
Change your own life.
Right. It was more about me in that moment and satisfying myself. Now, as I've matured as an entrepreneur, it's more about changing the world or changing the dynamic or changing a culture or changing a community, right, by using creative skill sets to do so. Right?
But in that moment, you were taking a risk.
Sure.
And you were jumping into a pool that you didn't know what the depth of the pool was. You didn't know how long it was going to take you to get to the other side if you were swimming.
No clue.
What was that experience like from a fear standpoint? Was fear part of the equation for you, or you just literally just jumped in?
Oh, it's terrifying. Anybody who tells you it's not terrifying is a liar. Like, it's absolutely terrifying. And it's not the only thing that's terrifying is like, what if I do this and I fail?
Oh, yes.
That's the only question you're thinking of yourself. What if I do this? If I put all this work and all this effort into it and I fail, then what? Right? And that's where grit is found, right? That is where the entrepreneurial spirit is found. That's where you become the next best version of yourself, is inside of the failure, right? It's great to have successes and celebrate them, but the failure is the thing that determines whether or not you will be successful or not, how you handle the failure, right? I know that now, but back then I was like, well, if it doesn't work, I can always go back to.
Oh, yeah.
Right? So in that mindset, you're still tethered to something else.
You haven't burned the bridges.
Right.
You haven't burned the boats. You're not you haven't cut off option B.
Exactly.
If it's only option A and that's the only option you have, you keep going down that path.
And you'll put 100% of your fight into that, right? But if you're like, if it works, it doesn't work. It doesn't work, it's great, and I can always go back. Then you're not going to be able to dive in.
That's where it comes down to having commitment to something, and also being decisive, meaning making a decision and then going down that path, and then just dedication, that whole disciplined approach to living life, whether it's waking up at whatever time it is that you're doing it, making sure you're doing whatever needs to be done in the business, being the first one in, last one out, that sort of thing.